Yeah, baby.
Hey, Jim. Oh, there you are. Hey, it's time for a Bluebird update. There's been a few things going on the old girl. The refrigerator, as you can plainly see, is working fantastically. It's been on about 3 or 4 days now, and freezer's working good. I've had to actually adjust it down to its lowest setting so it would stop freezing my beer. You might remember how ugly the ceiling was right here over the stove. There was a big leak. They had put a piece of plywood over the ceiling hatch, and the headliner here was completely warped and sagging from getting wet, and I imagine it had been leaking for a long time. It also kind of damaged the wood. There's a cover over the stove here, and it has like a pheasant, a glass insert. All the Bluebirds came with that. Really kind of silly. So I think I'm going to change it. The plywood was damaged from the water leak from up here, but I fixed it. Looks better. Big gaping hole. When I would give it the beans, it would just leave. So what I did is I completely removed the old one, and I'll show you. We're going to do another one. We're going to do this one here today, and I'll show you how I went about doing this one. But it was really bad. All of this headliner was sagging and warped, and you would push up quite hard on it and it really wouldn't stay in place. It was permanently warped. So what I did is, before I installed my new hatch unit from the outside, I cleaned everything off real good, and I made a wooden framework that went around the perimeter just inside where all the mounting holes are. And then I glued it into place and clamped it overnight. And then once it was set, I went above and drilled a hole in every one of the existing holes that were already in the metal, and I was using a much smaller drill bit, so I didn't actually open the hole in the metal at all. I was just drilling a pilot hole in my wooden frame. And then I screwed down my new hatch, and instead of just going through the metal skin of the roof, it also now goes into this wooden block. And I was able to then use boards and spring jacks to push the ceiling up into place, and use these screws to screw it up against the board. Then I was able to put my trim ring on. Everything is nice and flat and smooth now. And one of the neatest things about it is I installed a light ring. So it gives us some nice lighting right down below there in the kitchen. So that's a good thing. More good news. I was having lots of problems with my water system, and it just wasn't, it was leaking really badly, and it was from somewhere inaccessible. Well, look at this. Yes, thank you very much. The water system is fixed. I was getting ready to take all of this stuff out and start digging down through the bottom of this cabinet, because that's where all of my leakage seemed to be coming from. And I'm looking at all these valves, and then I realized, wait a minute, that's not a shut-off valve for the supply line. The supply line's over here. So these two valves here are drain valves, and I didn't realize that they were drain valves and they were open. So as soon as I closed these two valves, the water system is fixed. I feel kind of dumb, but that's okay. Figured it out. And let me show you another little fun trick. Okay, we've seen my control panel before. That's where I check for the battery condition. It says good. We always like that. That's our water pump. We don't need it on because it's already pressurized a little bit. holding tanks. Do I believe this thing? Okay, it still says EE, and I have, as you just saw, put some water down the drain, just clear water. I'm not using the toilet or anything. It's just putting some clear water down the drain, no leaks, but it still shows everything at empty, which is a little suspect, especially when you consider the fact that, well, it's 3/4 and that's in my water tank, and that is relatively correct. The one that's not is this one, LP gas. Okay, I thought, oh boy, I got a full tank of propane. Well, my beautiful wife Shannon came out here last night and we were planning on trying to cook dinner using this stove and oven, and I lit the pilot lights and got everything going and preheated the oven, and everything went out. So we ran out of propane. And then I looked closely at the actual tank, and there is a little gauge on the tank that's it was all covered in dust and dirt, so I didn't really realize what it was. But when I wiped it off clean, it's showing absolute zero in the tank. So the control panel propane gauge, it lies. Good to know. Another issue that I had is when I had the front of the bus opened up, I topped off the radiator and then put the cap back on, and with this big panel off, the sun was on the front of my radiator, and I noticed when it pressurized a little bit just from the warmth of the sun, it was seeping out of the joint here. Coolant was seeping out. Oh, wow, I'm glad I noticed it. So I did a really sloppy soldering job here, but it's sealed up and it doesn't leak anymore, so I don't care if it's a little ugly. I'm going to turn it around here in the next few days. I gotta take it for a ride and go get the propane tank filled, but I have to turn it around and finish my renovation here, this stripe. Gotta finish it and put it all the way down this side, polish the wheels up, and just help this side look a little bit better. But that probably won't happen till, I don't know, hopefully next week. This hatch is not nearly as bad as the one over the kitchen was, and I think part of that is because it's got a sheet of sheet metal right here. Not sure why there's sheet metal here but not over the kitchen. Seems kind of odd. But this is a original fixture that had lights. So the new one I've got is this one right here, and it does not have lights, but hopefully sometime today I'll get a delivery of the other light ring like we used in the kitchen. So the first thing I'm going to do, obviously I've already taken off. This trim piece was just barely on there, and it had a piece of plywood screwed to the top. You can see they screwed it right into the plastic of the housing here, which is not that great of an idea. Anyway, I'm going to go up onto the roof, and I'm going to have to go around and scrape all of the mastic and caulking and all that crap that's up there that makes it so I can't get my nut driver on the heads of the nuts up there. Let me show you. I have taken the screen out, and that way I can take my tools and just set them up here, and that way I don't have to carry them up the stairs. But this has been replaced. It's not the original unit. You can see on the motor there's a date code, and it says January 15th, 1990. Let's see if I can zoom in. There we go. So it's been replaced once. Still, it made it for, well, not in very good condition, but it did make it till 2021. I bet you the one I put in today is not going to last as long as this one. Okay, well, we can see here that all of these are covered in some sort of goop. So I take a little chisel here and just knock as much of the goop off as I have to in order to get my socket over the head of the screw. So that's what I got to do for all of these. They're all bad.
Okay, sir, you're a Lebowski, I'm a Lebowski.
Well, it's been a couple days and I've been caught up in some other stuff, but as you can see, I now have a wooden frame around the perimeter up here, and it's all gooped in and glued and siliconed, and I'm going to let the clamps hold it and let it sit up for overnight. And what this is giving me is it's giving me a defined level for this headliner to end up living at. Without this wooden framework in there, it seems to me like it will be very hard to put this trim plate up and have it be even and nice and actually be strong enough to hold, because it's just plastic framework. So it seems like, and maybe I'm just crazy and doing this wrong, but it seems like this is the right way to go. And it worked really good in the kitchen. Let me show you that one more time. It worked real good in here. This headliner was super saggy from water leakage over the years, and it had just dropped down so far that even opening this cabinet was a little bit of interference. So I was able to build the wooden framework, and like I said before, screw it down from the top very carefully, and then it gives me somewhere. In this case, I used these washers and these screws to pull this whole thing up tight. So that's what we're doing here. Oh. And just like that, there it is. Check this out. The fan's a little bit noisy. Next time I might replace it with one of those larger high volume fans, and then they come with a remote control and all of that. The thing is, those are like $300 or $400, and this one was, I think, $50, something like that. So it's good for now. This is one of those things I absolutely had to do before this bus could be really looked at seriously as a cross-country driver. These leaked like a sieve, so now all of this is good to go. And then there's this, a little extra light in the old living room. All right. Thanks for watching. I'm going to probably do something different. I'm probably going to jump off of the Wanderlodge for a little while and jump onto some other stuff. But we'll see. There's still a few more things to go on the old bus here.